much, and I just want to say that people like Biff, all the volunteers here, everybody that helped make this possible, I just think that this is one of the most grand things to happen since Amazement Square.
Today's the grand opening of our exhibit, The World in Your Hands. As you can see, we have over 200 world globes from the 15th century all the way to the 21st century. We're the American Globe Preservation Society, and what we do is try to preserve the legacy of globe makers.
The first American globe maker was a farmer by the name of James Wilson, and he in 1800.
All to educate the public and reintroduce the public to globes and everything related to it, which is geography and history. We have now schools even lined up to come through here. We will work with them on basic geographic knowledge, from time zones to hemispheres to the season, how that works and so forth. I mean, we have a big focus on children. You have to have the physical world in your hands. You literally do, and that's what we're trying to do, and that's what we're offering to the kids. To me, globes are little teeny tiny or maybe giant time capsules. I mean, you cannot find a piece of history like that. If I take a globe, I see in it human history, I see it exploring history, I see technology advancing, politics, the culture, the soap opera, everything that's behind it. We hope here that having these globes out there, that it will create new explorers, young and old, that it will be new discoverers of the past, the present, and the future.
Hello and welcome to Lynchburg Live. I'm your host, Linda Smith. My guest tonight is Kim Soerensen, owner of Omniterrum right here in Lynchburg. Kim is also a leading authority on the art of collecting vintage and antique world globes. And she's going to be telling us about her fascinating collection and about Omniterrum. Kim, I'm delighted to have you on the show.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate that.
You know, as we get started, the word Omniterrum is not something you hear very often. Could you please tell our audience what that is?
Omniterrum is a very crude translation out of the Latin omni for round and terrum for land. So it's round land.
Cool. So we're really talking about globes that are terrestrial globes and not the glass globes that you see on lamps around the light bulb.
Yes, we get that question quite often. What we specialize in is vintage scientific instruments that are terrestrial or celestial globes or related planetary, which is called a tellurium or ori.
All right, you just said terrestrial and celestial. What's the difference?
Okay, a terrestrial globe is anything that has the world on it. A celestial globe represents the stars, and I don't believe we have one here right now. But it would be a globe that has the zodiacs, nebula, the universe basically on it.
Where is your business located?
We're located at 1225 Main Street. That's right next to the community market on downtown historic Lynchburg.
Right, you're considered a leading authority worldwide, or at least that's what I read when I was doing research on you, on vintage and antique globes and related artifacts. And how did you develop an interest in something like this?
Yeah, it's a funny thing, isn't it? It was really a hobby that's grown out of proportions. It was probably first a hobby, then it was a hobby that paid for itself, and that doesn't happen very often. And thanks to the internet, it grew into a business eventually. And it grew into an international business because we have a lot of clients in Europe and Australia.
That's very interesting. I'm going to ask you some questions about that a little later.
Please.
All right, so this was a personal collection originally?
I probably should not mention that, but I don't really collect globes. I have 4 or 5 in my private collection that more likely I would not give up for anything. My interest is political history. I would purchase old globes that I would just find anywhere and take them home and review the history of them that was displayed and base their age on that. For example, what countries were displayed, you know, what nations were shown. And that was my interest. So since I didn't truly collect them, I would resell them, but describe them very well with the political borders displayed, why I think this globe was made in 1948 or 1930. And before you knew it, people started emailing and calling with questions regarding their globe that they just recently obtained in a yard sale or had in the family for several generations.
I imagine it's an expensive hobby, or it can be an expensive hobby.
It can. It can also be very affordable. My first globe was $10.
So that's not bad at all.
No.
So how long did it take you approximately to establish a collection or large enough to open a business?
I never have enough for my business.
Oh, okay.
The turnover is very quick. What I did originally, and it was strictly internet-based, I started out with just a few globes, and I would, every time I wanted to obtain new globes, I would pick some out of my collection to sell. And what happened is, first they resold for a value equivalent to what I purchased them for, $10, $20. Then they started to sell for more than what I paid for them. And with the extra money, I would build up my collection. I would, you know, purchase another globe, describe it really well, sell it, and with the extra profit, go up to more expensive globes and so forth.
That's really smart.
It worked for me. It was never intended to be. It's a passion.
Right.
I'm very fortunate, and I know that, to make a living with my passion. It was never, it's not something I went to school for. It's not something that I said 10 years ago that I would do for a living. So
when did you open this business here in Lynchburg?
It has been an internet business, incorporated since 2004. We became a public retail place just in 2009.
And is this the first retail store of its kind?
Of its kind. In the U.S., we're the only store that strictly is specialized or was specialized in globes. We just moved to our new location where we partner with somebody else. But previously, it is the only place in the U.S. that offers nothing but globes.
I think that's just really fascinating to me, you know, that we have this here in Lynchburg. Now, you did have a museum-type display that was associated with your business, and matter of fact, I think we saw some of that on the film, but I heard on the news that closed in January.
It was a temporary exhibit. What we have done, it was an idea of mine that started approximately 2 years ago. I was in Vienna working with the National Library of Austria, and I thought, you know what, we don't have a globe museum or a geography, history specialized museum in the United States. We also don't have an organization that supports the art of collecting globes, vintage and antique globes. So what we did is we created a new organization called the American Globe Preservation Society, and our goal is to build a museum. To introduce ourselves to the public, to the community, especially in the downtown Lynchburg area, we thought we could have this exhibit. And with the support of the downtown community, the Lynchburg Museum System, and collectors worldwide who sent and brought in their globes, we were able to have this fantastic exhibit. And the success has been overwhelming in a good way. We had over 600 visitors in about the same period, 6 weeks.
What are you going to need to do to make this museum a reality?
More support. Well, we have, we're on a membership drive. We'd like to, have lots of members, of course, who would support us, not just financially, but also as volunteers to build this. We need a permanent space. We would gladly partner with an existing museum or an existing institution that is interested or has similar interests.
Now, like your shop, if you're able to get this museum up and moving, will that be a one-of-a-kind thing? That's great.
Yes. To give you an idea, I think it would be very beneficial for downtown Lynchburg in so many ways. The exhibit itself attracted visitors as far as California, globe collectors from Massachusetts, from New York. We had a huge DC crowd. The new train system between Lynchburg and DC has really benefited. Matter of fact, we have people come down to the shop on weekends from Richmond, from DC, from Charlottesville, just to see the globes.
I think it's really fascinating.
Thank you.
Now, how many globes do you have in your shop? Do you know how many you have in your shop?
I'm ballparking this at about 200.
That's an amazing number of globes. All right, what else will we find if we visit the Omniterrum?
Omniterrum, well, lots of information. If you have a globe and you'd like to find more out about it, we'd gladly help you with it. We also archive all related documents. We don't carry just terrestrial globes, but also celestial, anything related to the scientific instrument, the world globe. We carry everything. Our oldest model is from actually we have one of our oldest models right here, from 1850 all the way to current world globes. If you need one, we have them.
How do you come by these? Do you just, I mean, is it just people that you meet on the internet who have something that they want to trade or
sometimes
sell?
Now it's very easy. We're well known. Omniterrum is well known, and when somebody would like to, has a collection and wants to downsize, they will call us and we'll work out something. I do know that 32 world globes fit in a Ford Focus. That means if my husband is driving and I'm on the passenger chair, a seat holding one in my lap and one between the legs.
That's wonderful.
So yes, we've obtained entire collections, and what we do then is break them down, and we have a wish list from clients, what they're looking for, and the rest will be offered in our shop through the website or in just negotiations.
Now, you said you had some interesting clientele. Can you tell us about that? I know people come from all over.
Yes, I can. Within limitations, our clientele includes, everybody from just a beginner collector, we just sold a tin globe for $20, to a college student. It also includes, and for their privacy, we cannot mention names,
right,
but we have had anything from the entertainment industry to royalty to politicians, artists, and other well-known individuals. But our primary clients, I would say, are either our private collectors or institutions, mostly museums.
All right. Is it true, see, I've done some research, but is it true that originally terrestrial globes were manufactured as scientific instruments?
Absolutely. It were navigation. The first globe over 2,000 years ago were actually celestial globes, and they were navigational instruments. People knew 2,000 years ago the world was round, and for navigational, they didn't have the compass, or certainly not GPS we have today.
No, I wouldn't think so.
And they used the stars to know their routes and their travels, and those were celestial globes, followed by the terrestrial globes later on.
And something you told me on the phone that I thought was interesting. You said that a country that was at war with another country and had manufactured a globe would sometimes leave out the country that they were warring with.
Absolutely. One of the most famous models is a World War II model made in Germany. And Germany, now this is more for history buffs, Germany in World War I lost, post-World War I, in the Treaty of Versailles, lost their political, their properties in Africa, the colonies. But when Hitler came to power in World War II, he decided not to recognize the Treaty of Versailles, and what he did is, all of a sudden, all German globes during World War II have German colonies again in Africa. So globes are very political, and I think that's what fascinates me about political history. If you understand the history, if you know the past, you understand a lot of the current events, and perhaps we can prevent some in the future, who knows.
What eras do you have? Your globes are from?
The ones we have, I don't have very many of the very, very old ones in the shop. I do start around 1850 through the 21st century in the shop. I have worked with older models, but more likely we locate and crate them and ship them directly to the institutions. They don't get seen very often by the public. I just shipped one to Austria that I found in Belgium.
Goodness. Now you've brought some globes.
Yes,
and
I did.
If you'd like to tell us about them, and if you need something brought over here to our table, my husband will help you. You just say.
Fantastic.
Okay.
No. This one is one of my favorites, and for quite a few reasons. In 1870, the state of Connecticut wanted to ensure that every student in the state of Connecticut would have globes. However, it wasn't very, they weren't very affordable. Industrialization went only so far. You could only print one color, and the rest was colored in. So what they did, they had a contract with a globe maker that the state prisoners would make these globes. So instead of license plates like today, the state prisoners actually made these globes. And this is called a Hemisphere Globe. It shows you what the world looks like round versus a flat map. And this is from 1870. Definitely one of my favorite pieces. This one right here, I'll take it. Okay. And people panic when I handle it. This is one of my other favorites, and the reason being because this is 1850, so it's not that long ago, yet all it mentions is the supposed Antarctic continent. So they're not even sure that Antarctica exists. And if you look in Africa, and it looks very empty because Mr. Livingston hasn't been there, and they simply wrote unexplored.
That's
territory.
Something else, yeah. Now, what is this made out of?
This is made of wood, more likely poplar. It's a very heavy piece, and then plaster was applied over the wood to prevent it from contraction and expansion during humidity. And there's individual paper strips applied on top of that, and this is all hand-colored.
How much would something like this?
This one right here, about $4,000 to $5,000.
I was going to handle it, but I don't think I will. I think I'll just let you do that.
Right. All right, I will do that. Here we go. This one right here is really unique.
Looks heavy.
It is. This one is a really nice piece, and it's actually one of the pieces that that are from my personal collection. What's special about this is from 1927, it was made for about 2 years, and you see all these different discs. Here's the top. And what you can do, each disc represents, and I didn't check it, I can't remove it. Each disc represents a continent, and I don't know if you can see it. Within the continent, the disc of the continent, each country is shown as a puzzle piece and are removable.
Oh, how neat.
So it's a very neat piece. Unfortunately, the patent was applied for in 1927, and then we had the market crash in 1929, and the company didn't make it past them. So these are this is one of my favorite personal pieces.
So this is a limited edition?
Yes. Matter of fact, if you look at all these puzzle pieces, one thing working with institutions and some private collectors is you have to find it as perfect as possible. I had to find 4 of these to make one complete globe to sell to an institution. So, and I actually have 2, and this is one of my projects. I'm making one.
So this is really rare. How do you date a globe?
On the political borders displayed, if you are interested, you can go to our website and print out. We have created a huge archive of information, and one of the information pieces is how to date a globe, going by the political borders of when countries were created or destroyed or newly created again.
How can you ensure accuracy when you're...
It's not that easy, and just like anywhere else, there are some replicas out there, and that's where simply knowledge becomes an important factor. We do that quite often for people. They authenticate globes, and sometimes it's very disappointing, but they're still very beautiful to look at.
Sure.
However, they weren't authentic, so that's unfortunate. However, they're still pretty. So this right here is from the space age era. This globe can be found in the National Library of Austria and Cambridge University. It can also be found in the National Library of Germany. Okay. So we know we put them there. This right here is also, this is actually a former East Germany moon globe. And the University of Cambridge has one of these. And if you see, there's an empty part.
I do.
This is a representation of Lunik 3, who took pictures. I don't know if you remember the space age era. During the space age era, USSR, former Russia, USSR, and the US had a race to the moon. And Lunik 3, which was a satellite, was the first satellite that went 3/4 around the moon. And before, you could see only half of the moon. To show the USSR advancement of space technology over the US, the first thing they did is they hurried up and made a moon globe. And this empty strip is there simply because they didn't make it all the way around.
They didn't see.
But they wanted to show that they were ahead of the space program. This is what launched President Kennedy in 1961 to give his speech about, by the end of the century, they would be the first.
That is really, really fascinating, I think. Do you need me to hand you anything?
This right here, I don't know if it's that interesting. It's you can just leave it. That's actually in the 30s when electricity was became more common. Globes were made out of glass, and this one actually illuminates. It's a glass globe, and it's hand-blown glass, and made from the 30s to 50s. And even though these globes are not as old as some of the others I've shown, they're just as valuable because they were made for a very short period, and they break easily.
I'm glad you told me not to pick that up.
That's okay. And that's just one of my favorite pieces from the late 40s, you know, the chrome, just the machine age.
That looks like an airplane.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
I could bring that up here. This is one of the most desirable globes. Everybody, when people get into collecting globes, that one is the first one that people often like. And it is a beautiful piece.
And what year?
This one's 1949, just post-World War II.
What's the price on something like this?
This one around $500, depending on condition.
How do you know how many exist of a certain globe?
Well, we have a huge archive, and this is where documentation comes in. Our strength is documentation. We have patent requests. We have the original catalogs of the globe makers. We know from when to when the globe makers were active. And that's the kind of information you need to have to authenticate just about anything, knowing when they were actually active.
How old is the oldest globe that you have?
That
you have in your collection or in
my
your
collection?
Store?
1850. Would probably be this one right here, yep.
Is that also your most rare?
No, not necessarily. The rarest globe is actually one of the few globes I just sold to Austria, and that was a James Wilson globe. James Wilson was the first American globe maker who started making globes in 1810, and it was a celestial globe made by him.
We only have about 3 minutes.
Okay.
Believe it or not. It's hard to believe that the time goes by so fast. If you have a website.
Yes, we do. Omniterrum.com. That's OMNITERRUM.com. And we have theamericanglobe.org, which is our nonprofit, the American Globe Preservation Society.
And please tell us where your shop is again downtown so that people who are watching may be interested in stopping in, and what your hours are.
Our hours are Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 5. We're located right next to the community market at 1225 Main Street. So after you've been to the market on Saturday morning, grab a cup of coffee and come on down.
If someone were interested in globe collecting or getting into that, I'm sure that this is for some people like art collecting.
It is.
What would you advise them to do to start a collection?
Try to find them in the best possible condition and obtain knowledge. Obtain knowledge of the globe maker. Any globe can gain value. The rarer it is and the better it is in the condition. Those are the two factors. And from then on, collect what you like. Collect what looks good to you, what is pretty, what is attractive on your shelf, and just take it from there. And then people specialize.
Kim, I really thank you for coming and doing this show, because I think it's fascinating. I learned so much about globes just doing a little bit of research for this show. So now I'm kind of hooked. You know? But
come on down.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show, and we'll go downtown and visit the Omniterrum and see what Kim has. My next regularly scheduled show will feature the director of the Lynchburg Humane Society. We'll also be doing a special edition Lynchburg Live following the Hill City Polar Plunge, raising money for Special Olympics. So watch for that. It'll be on at a special time. And my producer Phil and I will not be plunging. We will be